Road vehicles are called road vehicles for one simple reason. They're supposed to be on the road. So long as your vehicle is on the road, everything is fine. When it's not on the road, you might have a problem on your hands. In this video, we're going to take a good look at some road vehicles which have ended up in places they shouldn't be. Some of them are accidents and some of them might have been pranks, but they're all totally mind-blowing. Losing control of your car during your drive home must be a frightening experience, but usually the worst you can expect to happen is to hit a fence or a gate post. It takes a spectacular loss of control to end up with your vehicle lodged firmly on your neighbor's roof. But that's exactly what happened to this couple in California. Rob Wynn and his wife Galina skidded across a steep corner as they turned to enter their street, and they're not sure what happened next. All they know is their airbags deployed, and the next thing they knew, they were a long way off the ground. Fortunately, their 80-year-old neighbor was downstairs when the accident happened, and so they weren't harmed by their unexpected roof guest. It's thought that the car's brakes failed, and so the vehicle simply left the ground as it came around the corner and only stopped when it encountered the nearest hard object. It's a miracle nobody was seriously hurt. It looks as if someone deliberately and delicately stacked these two Porsche 911 Carreras on top of each other for a display. But no, this is actually the result of a collision on a racetrack. It happened at the Porsche Carrera Cup in Spain, where Jofre de Narda got into trouble as he attempted the third turn of the track. His car got into a deep spin and came out of it facing straight into oncoming traffic. Onlookers feared that they were about to see a terrible head-on collision, but instead, something remarkable happened. Jules Gounon slammed on the brakes of his Porsche, and the vehicle gracefully drove straight up onto the roof of de Narda's car, coming to a stop directly on top of it. It looks like a modern art sculpture, but both men can consider themselves very lucky to have escaped from this incident with their lives. The majority of motor racing incidents don't end with such a pretty picture. If you're going to reverse into a tight parking space several floors up in a car park, you should take care to ensure that you've correctly judged not only the distance to the wall, but also the position of your feet before you make the attempt. If you don't, you could find yourself in the same sticky situation that 67-year-old Ralph Hudson did in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Ralph thought he had his Mercedes lined up perfectly for the space, but as he went to slip into position, he got his foot caught between the accelerator pedal and the brake. As a result, the car shot backward at speed and smashed through the outer wall of the car park's 7th floor. Had the car completely sailed through the hole, this story would have an unhappy ending. But fortunately, Ralph was able to regain control in the nick of time. The Mercedes was pulled back inside the building and was still in a drivable condition. We hope his insurance covered the cost of the wall. As anyone who's ever watched a high-speed police chase on television knows, trying to outrun the law is never a good idea. Many police officers are specially trained advanced drivers who know how to handle a vehicle at high speed. Most criminals are not. When 27-year-old Amanda Jeffries attempted to evade the police in her stolen pickup truck in San Angelo, Texas, her journey was always bound to end up in disaster. The final destination of her journey couldn't have been any more ironic, though. She smashed the car into the local police force's own administrative offices. Unsurprisingly, there were plenty of law enforcement officers around to arrest her when she staggered out of the vehicle. It was only sheer good fortune that meant the corner of the building she plowed into was unoccupied at the time of the impact, so nobody other than Amanda was injured. She wasn't badly hurt, and so the remainder of her evening consisted of a trip to the hospital and then an extended stay in a prison cell. We don't know why truck drivers seem to ignore warning signs so often, but we wish they didn't. If they would just start paying attention to the maximum height restrictions on bridges, we wouldn't see incidents like this one as often as we do. This is the railroad overpass on Brady Street, Davenport, Iowa, in the United States of America. It's known to locals as the Truck-Eating Bridge. With a name like that, you'd have thought that truck drivers would know to be especially wary of it, but sadly that isn't the case. Here's one of its victims, a semi-truck trailer that was very nearly split clean in half by its meeting with the bridge. The driver didn't come to any harm during the incident, and no other vehicles were involved either. It was a simple case of someone ignoring the information that's right in front of their eyes, and then paying a heavy price for it. We suspect that this trailer is destined for the scrapyard now. Here's an accident that comes straight from the playbook of irony. It's a cement mixer in China, and it's become completely stuck in cement. We have to be fair to the driver in this incident, though. It wasn't his fault. Zhang Fengyi, who was behind the wheel of the cement mixer as it traveled through the Shanxi province in China, was delivering cement to a roadwork site elsewhere in the province. He'd already completed his delivery when he found himself sinking into the road, and before he knew what was going on, his vehicle was trapped like a fly in amber. Chinese authorities later discovered that there were 3 large unauthorized pits dug underneath the surface of this street, which had weakened the structure of the road. When the 12-ton truck drove over the top of them, the surface simply gave way. Had the cement mixer sunk just a few more inches, it would have shattered some of the area's largest hot water pipes and drenched the area in 3,000 tons of liquid. It could have been a lot worse. This white Ford Escort looks like it's far too high in this tree to have got there because of a simple accident. If we're being honest with you, it didn't. It had a little bit of help to get there. Apparently, the residents of Lubzynia in Poland were sick and tired of one of their younger neighbors terrorizing their streets by driving the car around them late at night, with the windows down and loud music playing. They took their revenge by borrowing a crane, hoisting the car up out of the street late at night, and leaving it in the tree. Police were called, but none of the residents would confirm who was involved in the scheme. With nothing else to go on, the police told the 24-year-old boy racer he'd have to get the car out of its wild predicament himself. Zbigniew Filo is the boy racer in question, and he's since admitted that he should be more considerate about how and when he drives his car. He told the press that he understood the message his neighbors had given to him, but found their method to be a little bit harsh. We're going to be kind to the driver involved in this next accident and assume that it must have been too dark for him to realize where he was headed when he got his car wedged on a public walkway. It's understood that he was a visitor to the area of Dunkin in Kerry, Ireland, and he arrived at around 9 p.m. looking for somewhere to park for the evening. Unfortunately, his search took him down a very narrow, winding public walkway. As the road narrowed, he found that he didn't have enough space to make a turn at the end of it, and nor could he reverse back out again. He couldn't even open the doors. That left him with no option but to sit tight in the driver's seat until the following morning, when a ferry captain discovered him and his trapped SUV. The driver eventually escaped through the boot, but the car could only be retrieved with the help of a digger. In the plain light of day, it's obvious the car would never have been able to make it down the path. Perhaps he didn't have his lights on. The residents of Bruton, in the country of Somerset in England, have had concerns about how narrow the road of St. Catherine's Hill is for years. In fact, they're so concerned about it that they've insisted that the council erect several signs to warn drivers of large vehicles about the danger. We already know that truck drivers like to ignore signs like that, though. And so here's another one getting his vehicle stuck in a completely preventable incident. The vehicle is a delivery truck for the large British department store John Lewis, but whichever branch of John Lewis it was destined for didn't receive its delivery on this day. The truck hit the wall so hard that it knocked a chunk out of one of the buildings, creating piles of rubble. It's thought that technology might be to blame for this mishap. Even though residents have put signs up, satellite navigation systems still direct truck drivers to head down the road. Perhaps bollards might solve the problem. We understand how exciting it must be to buy a brand new sports car. After you've taken it for a drive around your local area and got used to how it handles, the next thing you want to do is take it home and show it off to all your neighbors. Kim Taylor couldn't wait for her neighbors to get a close-up look at her red Mazda Miata, but she didn't really intend for them to get their first glimpse of it when it rolled into their swimming pool. An overexcited Kim was positive that she'd put the handbrake on when she parked it in her drive, but she hadn't. Without its drivers there to keep it stable, the fresh-off-the-line Mazda rolled back out of the driveway, across the street, through the garden, and straight to the bottom of the pool. It plowed through a fence on its way there, just to add insult to injury. Her insurance company probably couldn't believe it when they got the call to inform them. All we can do is hope that her policy was watertight. There wasn't even any driver error involved in this next incident, just some freak weather proving that all of us are powerless in the face of nature. Justin Yellen drove his car to Hoke's restaurant in Buffalo, New York one night and had a few alcoholic drinks with his meal. Sensibly, he decided to take a taxi home and came back for his car the next day. Unfortunately, the weather turned overnight. There was a windstorm that blasted waves from the nearby lakeshore into the parking lot, which flooded. At the same time, the temperatures dropped sharply and the car became frozen in ice. Poor Justin couldn't believe what he was seeing when he came back to collect his car and had to phone the local Lake Erie Towing and Recovery Service for assistance. They were eventually able to free the Mitsubishi Lancer by using calcium flakes to melt the ice around the wheels and haul the car to safety 2 days later. By that time, the Ice Car of Buffalo had become a social media sensation. We would have reservations about trying to overtake a herd of elephants on the road if we were driving a car or a truck. We wouldn't even consider it if we were driving a humble moped. This driver in Thailand gave it a go, though, and so we don't know whether to call him brave or stupid. If he was brave, his bravery didn't last very long. The elephants were furious about the interruption and the noise, and they made sure he knew about it. As they turned around to charge at him, screaming in anger, all he could do was jump off the moped and flee for safety into the nearby jungle. Later pictures show him appearing to beg the elephants for mercy. Fortunately for him, the massive creatures eventually got bored of him and walked away, leaving him to retrieve his undamaged moped and carry on with his journey. If you ever encounter a family of elephants on the road, we suggest staying behind them and letting them dictate the pace. Subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and enjoy watching new videos on my channel. Thanks for watching and see you soon!